What's up, world? This is ventradio.net, and you are tuned in. Happy New Year to everybody out there. We got in the house today, ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Dr. Umar Johnson is in the house. How you doing, Dr. Johnson?
All is well. Thanks for having me on the show. Good afternoon to everyone. Black Power to Detroit.
And we also got our young lady in the house, Sonia. How you doing, Sonia? Happy New Year to you, baby.
Thank you so much for the young. I'm doing wonderful.
And we all hope that you all had a happy New Year. We got questions in store for you today for Dr. Umar Johnson. And will we be taking any calls?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, you know the number.
Wouldn't make no sense to do Dr. Umar if you ain't taking no calls.
All right, because I know a lot of y'all saying, can I call in? That's right, you can. 248-429-7224 is the number, and you are tuned in to ventradio.net. Sonia, what you got for us, dear?
Well, we want to definitely make sure that this show is all about our guests because there are a lot of things that we want to discuss. Right now, we have a lot of things coming up in this 2018 with Vent Radio. So I'm just excited. Stay tuned with us. But as he said, you can call in at 248-429-7224. You can also watch us on ventradio.net. So let's get to our guest. Dr. Umar, how are you feeling about the city of Detroit?
I'm feeling really good. I had an opportunity to visit a school property today that I think may be a good one. In Detroit is one I've been waiting on for a couple of weeks. It's the one I mentioned last night in the lecture. So I had a pleasant surprise when the realtors texted me and said, we can get in. Make sure you're there at 3 sharp. So I rushed over there and I saw it. And it is the best thing in Detroit, second only to the property I spoke of last night, which is my overall first choice in Southfield, the Academy of Southfield. But they want $1.5 million for it, and we only have half of that. So if we take that off the table, because that would be my logical number one choice, the Academy of Southfield, but since we don't have enough money for it, number 2 choice in Detroit. But in terms of quality, I would still say it's kind of neck and neck with the school that we also have a chance of getting in Chicago. So Detroit, Chicago, Atlanta is really what we're dealing with. There's a school in Atlanta. It has more land than the school in either Detroit or Chicago. It has more future potential, but it's going to cost more to rehab it up front.
Okay.
So I think the Chicago or the Detroit school will be the one I'll be going with. And God willing, all of this will be wrapped up in the next 30 days.
Well, that's a wonderful thing. That's a very wonderful thing and a very special thing that you've been doing. But the turnout from the citizens of Detroit, because they loved you last night.
Yes, sir.
They
Yes, sir.
really loved you. And how did you feel?
I always feel good when I come to Detroit. I don't think I've ever come to Detroit and not have had a sold out crowd. Yesterday was not a sellout only because the Eventbrite platform that I used to sell tickets kept shutting down the ticket sales, which led many people to think that the event had already sold out. Okay. So I was kind of a victim of my own success in that most people know it normally sells out in Detroit. So if I go to his page and I can't buy a ticket, right, that means it ain't none left. And unfortunately, that wasn't the case. So I'll be making a return visit to Detroit probably in Black History Month to make up for all the people who couldn't be there. I got a lot of texts this morning. Doc, I thought it was sold out. I would have been there.
Right.
So I have to come on back. But it was great energy. A lot of new faces. I love to see new faces because that means people, more people, new people, fresh people are being attracted to my message. I love to see my day ones, though. I love to see my day ones, people who've been standing by my side for years. But it's always good to see the new faces because that means we're growing.
And to see them new faces, it was freezing out there last night, man. And they came out in droves for you.
Yes, they did.
And that's some true Detroit love.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I could have cried, man. Because I said, there's weather, they're not coming out.
Yeah, and that was a great turnout.
It was
for that.
It was.
And you treated everybody to the last person. You
yes, sir. Always.
Books. That was that love that we look for here in Detroit. And we appreciate it, man.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. I don't know what I'm going to do when I become an elder because I won't be able to stand up and take all the pictures of the book. So it's interesting because that's part of the Umar brand, you know, that picture line. So when I get 60 and 70, God willing, if I'm still here, I don't know how that's going to work.
We'll make sure we get you a chair.
Okay. A lot of people are hearing about Dr. Umar Johnson, but they're questioning who is Dr. Umar Johnson and what's all this buzz about? What's all this? What's all this going on? Who is Dr. Umar Johnson?
I would say Dr. Umar Johnson is the 21st century versions of the 20th century Marcus Garvey. Dr. Umar Johnson is a doctor of clinical psychology. He's a certified school psychologist. He's a certified school principal, former school principal, current school psychologist, which I've been for almost 20 years now. A blood relative to the great Frederick Douglass, who happens to be my 4 times great-grand cousin and uncle by way of slave master rape. Also, I am a blood relative of the 7th Bishop of the AME Church, Bishop Alexander Wayman, who actually fought to see to it that one of my other heroes became an AME bishop, and that's Bishop Henry McNeil Turner, who was the first black man to say God was black. Honorable Elijah Muhammad attended his school as a child in Georgia. I'm founder of the National Independent Black Parent Association, as well as the Black College and Consciousness Store for 11 to 17-year-old young brothers and sisters. And I'm currently on a mission to build several Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey's academies. But of course, we got to get the first one done first. And so over the next week, I'll be meditating and sitting at my ancestral altar and calling on my Iyanifas and Babalawos. Those are priests and priestesses of African spirituality, to see if they can divine and find out what city works best. Should it be Atlanta? Should it be Detroit? Should it be Chicago? That's where we are now. It really was my intent to know the school last night. My whole goal was to announce it in Detroit New Year's Day. But obviously, I really don't control the way things go, especially in real estate. People take their time. Not everyone is as urgent as you are. So it looks like we're going to have to forestall this. And I'm hoping the first day of Black History Month, I will be able to announce where the school will be, or what would be even better, if I can announce it on my great ancestors' 200th Earth Day, February the 14th, not Valentine's Day, but Frederick Douglass Day. February the 14th, he will be 200 years old. 1818 to 2018, the struggle continues.
Wow.
And that's amazing. That's 2 days before my birthday.
Wow.
I'm on the 16th. I'm honored. But you know, you've been going through some things recently with the doctoral about your school, your court hearings. How's that working on you right now in continuing your struggle?
I'm fatigued. To be honest with you, I'm fatigued, but I'm keeping the strength up. You know, since I was a child, I knew this was my path. Unlike other people who got into Black consciousness to make money and hustle it, I came to Black consciousness for pure, sincere reasons. And so since I was in 4th, 5th grade Black history class, I always knew that this would be my destiny. I didn't know I would be the school psychologist. I didn't know things would take the flavor that it has taken, for good and for bad, but I knew this was my life path. You know, I remember in high school, one of my classmates told me, she said, people love to hear you speak, and one day you're going to make a big mark on our people. And I used to hear those comments from people all the time throughout life. Even when I got to the UNIA, the Garvey movement in Philadelphia, the elders there, I would hear comments from elders that say, you know, you might not want to hear this, but you're one of the ones God sent here to get this work done. Our ancestors chose you. You know, and so that's always resonated with me. I've always believed that, you know, I was put here to do the work that I do. So it comes with the territory. It reminds me of Winnie Mandela in her book. You know, she talked about how she knew Marion Nelson Mandela would come with all the struggle it came with. She was prepared for it, and she was willing to suffer it. And to me, I'm kind of similar in that regard, in knowing that sooner or later this would come.
Okay. Now, when you talk about the work that you're doing and you've done, when it comes to this school,
yes,
what is your mission with this school?
Well, the mission of the school is to build unapologetically African males who have economic control over their own destinies and who are willing to give their life for the liberation of their people. True education must teach the victim how to master the art of acquiring, protecting, and expanding power. And if an oppressed child is not taught how to acquire, protect, and expand power, then he has been miseducated. It doesn't matter how many doctorate degrees he has. It doesn't matter how many master's degrees he has. It doesn't matter how much money he makes. If you do not know who your enemy is, and if you do not know how to overcome that enemy, you have been miseducated. Period, point blank, end of story.
You are 100%, 110% on that one, bro. You are surely right. I want to touch on some issues that, like, you work with these young brothers, and that is really a passion for you to get these brothers on the right path. What are you looking for your future? as well as today's current state of the brother, man, especially our young brothers that's out here just totally lost and found.
Well, the way I see it, miseducation is the core crime committed against black males. Without the miseducation, it will be difficult to destabilize and disenfranchise black males at every subsequent level of societal participation. If you don't miseducate, it'll be difficult to incarcerate. If you don't miseducate, it'll be difficult to economically castrate. If you don't miseducate, it'll be difficult to prematurely exterminate. So the education is at the foundation of how America works to destroy black males. When we look at the 6-stage cycle of death for black boys, we have miseducation, special education, psychiatric medication, juvenile incarceration, psychological frustration, premature extermination. 1 out of every 4 black males is murdered at the hands of another black male suffering the same debilitating effects of systematic white supremacy.
And it's prevalent.
Oh,
right now to current date, and I'm 52 years old, and it's the same. Ladies and gentlemen, we're on the air right now, so don't have to call in because I'm using that line. But it's like right now at 52, I know what it's like about the civil rights movement. It's very difficult. The water hoses, the white and black. A lot of these young people don't realize about that era, and it's like, oh, that was old time stuff. But look at the things that are going on now. The depriving of an individual. Young people are being held down and not given the opportunity to come out here and prosper just like another young black people. And they got names for these young people: the new dreamers, the new what are they called?
Millennials.
The millennials, and all these different names and groups that they have. How do we get our people to focus on that when everybody else's cause is being helped and ours is being ignored?
Part of the reason everyone else's cause is being helped and ours is being ignored is because black people are handcuffed to a philosophy of colorblind multiculturalism. We have helped these other groups block us from having our agenda heard on the table of American political and social discussion. When the immigrant issue came up, black people were some of the first, and they were some of the most aggressive people championing the cause of the immigrants who Donald Trump wanted to deport or prevent from entering the country, failing to recognize that immigration since the end of slavery was used as a weapon against black people. When slavery ended with the passage of the 13th Amendment in December of 1865, one of the first things America did was it imported 2 million Chinese, East Indians, and other ethnic minorities. Now, why do you need to bring in workers when you got 4 million ex-slaves? Because you intended to economically suffocate the freedmen and the freedwoman. You see, so in order to do that, you have to bring in other cheap labor in order to make sure we starve to death. That's exactly what America does now with the Mexican agenda and other things. So when black people run to the aid of immigrants, then what you're looking at is political foolishness and imbecility, okay, on the behalf of the victim who doesn't understand that they're not coming here to help you, to work with you, to support you, or stand by you. They come here to replace you. They don't want to live on your block. They want to take your block.
Yes,
but
sir.
Because we hate who we are and love who we cannot be, it is difficult for us to see the writing on the wall. Black people are punch drunk in their love for white folks. And because of that, it's difficult for us to separate reality from myth. And if I would say, the number one symptom of mental illness is the inability to perceive reality from imagination.
Wow.
And that is black people's essential political issue.
Wow. Message.
Dr. Umar, I wasn't going to ask you any questions. It's not my job, but I have to ask you, our people feel that anytime that we get to talking about us as a people and what we need to do, why is it that black people feel that we have to explain and take up for white folks? Can you answer that for me?
Part of that comes from the fact that we were socialized during slavery to identify totally with the oppressor. you had no existence outside of the will of the oppressor. Even though slavery ended, the mindset that slavery created perpetuated itself generation in and generation out, because there was never a healing. There was never a psychological rehabilitation. So although the handcuffs were off the wrists, they were still around the brain. And also, we have an identity crisis. One thing that has to be admitted in order for us to solve this reality we're in, Black people are the only psychologically homeless people in America. Everyone else in this country has a homeland other than America that they identify with. There's no such thing as a generic American. You have Italian Americans, you have Jewish Americans, you have Chinese Americans, okay? You have Indian Americans. There's really no such thing as an African American. That's a construct that Jesse Jackson introduced into the social discourse at a 1988 conference in Chicago to make Black people think that they somehow have something in common with everyone else. And that African American identity has served to hurt us because it had made us feel American without actually participating in America. And when times call for us to speak truth to power, many of us don't feel comfortable doing it because our patriotism in America supersedes our loyalty to Black folks.
All praises due to a lot of his brothers, D.
Okay, well, you answered my question.
Well, we also want to introduce one of our other hosts, Miss April Berry. She's the host of
you last night, right?
Yes,
April.
on
We
her
have
show on
a
1440. We have a caller.
Yes.
Caller, you're on the air.
Oh, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
Well, I'm just wonderful. This is Mr. Derek calling.
Okay, are you calling to ask Dr. Umar a question?
Yes, but I'm just wondering, could he just explain his last point one more time?
Did you miss it the first time?
It was kind of deep.
Let me give an example of the last point to help explain it. Let's take the Buy Black movement. Black people need to support Black businesses. One of the reasons Black people feel no guilt, and of course, we just finished one of our record-breaking Christmas shopping seasons. Of course, in 2016, we spent $2 billion on Air Jordan and $4 billion on alcohol, $9 billion on weave and perm. We bought twice the amount of Mercedes-Benzes as white people, but we have less than 1/3 of white America's wealth. Black people don't feel guilty supporting the enterprises of other cultures. We don't feel guilty giving our money to people who are going to use it against us. If a Chinese man is hungry, there's a Black soul food restaurant next door. The closest Chinese store is 20 miles away and there's 3 inches of snow on the ground. Because of his cultural consciousness and loyalty, rooted in his identity to the Chinese people, he will forego his hunger until he gets to a Chinese store to support his own. Black people don't have that. And part of the reason we don't have that, on top of slavery snatching it away from us, is we remain psychologically homeless 153 years after slavery. We have never sought to put back the African cultural identity because many of our leading men after slavery all the way up until today has continued to feed us an intellectual diet that suggests ignoring your Blackness will help you achieve whiteness in America. And that has not yet happened. This is part of the reason why we've had so many names over the years. We've been Black, we've been Negro, we've been Anglo-African, we've been Afro-American. We think that if we come up with the right name that is not threatening to the American power structure, white people will accept us. We fail to recognize the reason white folks are against you has nothing to do with what you call yourself, but with what you don't do for yourself.
You caller?
Yes, sir. Your points are well taken. I want to point out that I agree 100% with what you're saying, but I want to add a twist to it. Okay. Yesterday, January 1st, Black folk spent over $1,000 to help needy causes in a skating event that happened last night, that we participated in last night. And that was an event that we advertised. on this radio station. And so, yes, we must condemn and talk about the bad things that they do. But we had a powerful skate night in Northland skating rink, and we raised over $1,000 for needy charities and charitable events. And the money was spent by Black folk for Black folk.
Well, that's great, brother.
I do agree with your point. I do agree, and we do need to talk about it, and we need to educate ourselves on the matter of how we do spend money. But I do want to commend our Black folk for last night.
And I'm glad that it happened. And I think that event speaks to the potential that we as a people have to actually finance our own liberation. But then I would add a twist to that. And one of the twists that I would add to that from a psychological standpoint is the fact that in order to get us to really benefit ourselves and come together and collectively support agendas such as the one that you had last night that's going to ultimately serve the greater good of the community, we often have to edutain Black people. And I think, and I'm not speaking to that event last night at all. I'm speaking more generally now. One of our weaknesses as a people, one of the political immaturities of Black people is that you have to edutain them. In other words, when you need to have a serious meeting, a serious community gathering where there's no entertainment, there's no comedy, there's no music, no dance, no skating, they don't want to be there. You often have to feed Black people the truth inside some sort of an entertainment concept or construct. And we got to get over that. Because there's no way we're going to win this war if people are only willing to participate if they're being entertained. And I think social network has only added to that mindset that says I have to be entertained in order to pay attention, because to some extent, you could often say that every Black person has a sort of political ADHD that they suffer from.
Well, you're very accurate in the concept that we need to change the mindset.
Yes.
The mindset is the problem of many of our African American people. Okay. However, we still cannot say that all African Americans have to be entertained, because we have many intellectual events or programs that they participate in. But I will agree in principle that yes, the mindset, many African Americans, many African Americans think their thinking is wrong. Their thinking is from a master-slave relationship. And we're really just a few generations removed from slavery. When you really think about it, you count your grandmother or your great-grandmother was probably a slave. And we are maturing, or we have to come through some type of a maturation process with our minds to start to think of ourselves as owners, or think of ourselves in a better way than a slave-master relationship.
And that was a good statement too, caller. But
thanks for your call, caller. We're going to drop you now.
Thank you.
How do we change that mentality? Because that was 100% true. If we are just 1 or 2 or 3 generations from the slavery mentality, how do we get our kids back in school? How do we get them interested in education when they never had that? Their grandmother can't read, great grandmama can't read. So how do we empower them and get them into this phobia of education?
I don't think, putting on my principal hat, children naturally want to succeed in school, whether they from the ghetto or the suburb. I don't care how poor they are, they come to school wanting to do well. When a child is no longer interested in doing well, you can best believe something is taking place, either at home or in the school, or both, that is serving to undermine that child's natural motivation to succeed. And what I find is either family conflicts at home, sex abuse, domestic abuse, trauma, hunger, homelessness, not having your basic needs taken care of, can be a factor. But more often than that, I find the emotional and verbal abuse that Black children receive from white teachers is more often at the heart of why they psychologically drop out of school. We got to be clear about something. If a child is physically dropping out, and most Black children drop out of high school as freshmen in high school, if they dropped out in the 9th physically, they psychologically dropped out in the 5th grade. And the question I have for the mother and the father, why didn't you identify or notice the psychological dropout 4 years ago? Why is it you're only recognizing the physical dropout? Your son was done with school 3 years ago, and you mean to tell me you didn't even know it? That's the greater crime.
And it's the shocker, too.
Without question. And the reason why so many of our children drop out as freshmen is because when you get to high school, teachers are not going to coddle you and give you the attention that you got from K to 8. When you get to 9th grade, high schools are pretty much operated like colleges. There's no one-on-one emotional support. Let me talk to you and encourage you. You either know how to do this work or you don't.
And we want to know why.
And if you have a low self-esteem, which comes from being miseducated, what's the likelihood of a Black boy in Detroit walking up to a white teacher who he knows does not care about him and say, I can't read, would you be willing to help me? He's not going to do it, because one of the prerequisites for a child to try to do their best in education is knowing that the teacher will catch them if they fall. So if you do not love that child will not love to learn.
Caller?
Right.
Hello, caller?
Yes, I'm here.
Do you have a question for Dr. Umar?
Okay, I got a couple questions.
Well, we're going to give you one, brother.
Everything a Black and white thing issue?
Absolutely.
Everything is a Black
Absolutely.
and white issue?
And
Okay.
until we understand that, we will solve nothing.
Okay, so is religion or nationality an issue?
Absolutely.
So if I don't consider myself a Black man and say I'm just a child of God, would that be considered a Black or white issue?
Absolutely, because if you're considering yourself a child of God, you are not identifying with your particular race, which means you can ultimately be used against it. You must be conscious of your loyalty, and any Black person who is not conscious of their loyalty to our community is a potential enemy.
So the same reason you stated earlier, Negro, African American, and all these other names, you would consider Black being amongst those names?
Oh, without question. But I would also say,
Okay.
to clarify quickly, the name isn't the issue. I believe that we can use all the names we want. If someone wants to be a Hebrew, a Moor, Nuwapian, African, Black, God and Earth, the names are fine, because we have never been under one name. Even in traditional Africa, Nile Valley culture, multiple names were used to describe us. So the issue is not the name. For example, you and I could be brothers, same mom and dad. You may change your name. Does that stop you from being my blood? Absolutely not. The name is superficial. The unity is substantial.
Thank you, caller.
So you.
Do we have another call? If not, we're gonna let April get in here.
Yeah, April, come on. Happy New Year, baby.
Hi, Happy New Year. Dr. Umar, I would like to know, because I was very impressed by your by yesterday's event.
Yes, ma'am.
And what I usually do is I usually see where my son is at. And since my son is a young person, it amazes me, or I make sure that I'm engaged in his thought process. And when I asked him what did he think his first question was,
He was there last night.
he was there last
And
night.
how old is he?
He was Austin, talking to you about music.
And how old is Austin?
Austin is 20.
Okay.
Okay, and so Austin asked, what was the transition? Because now social media and the internet allows them to surf. And so he found out that your name was Jerome Shoemake.
Jerome.
And so he
Jermaine.
Jermaine Shoemake.
Jerome in the house. Jerome's in the house.
And so he asked, what was the transition between Jermaine to
Umar.
Umar?
Okay. My father changed my name. My mother named me when I was born. And around 7 or 8 years old, just before we moved to North Carolina, my father changed my name because he was Muslim and we were raised Muslim. And he wanted all of us to have Arabic names. And my mother named me after Jermaine Jackson. And my father couldn't stand Jermaine Jackson. So the first thing, so when I moved to North Carolina, everyone down there met me as Umar. Okay. Which was good because we didn't have to go through a thing of people coming up with a new name. Okay. But all my friends and family back in Philadelphia still referred to me as May or Jermaine. Okay. And even now and then an aunt and uncle was still, for a long time, they resisted the Umar. Let me say that. My family said, my mom's family, the Shoemake family, they said, nah, his name is Jermaine and he gonna stay Jermaine. So for a while, they ignored that Umar thing. And I was still Jermaine.
So what was that transition like going from?
It was easy because the name change occurred before I got to North Carolina. So they were able to introduce me as Umar. And by the time I got back to Philadelphia, I had already pretty much become Umar to most people. Okay. But even now, I still have people who call me Jermaine. They never gave it up.
They never gave up.
Never gave it up. And I don't give it up either because my mother named me that name. Okay. So that's my mother's name, and I'm my mother's boy and her oldest son. So I'm always going to be Jermaine.
Wow. And so please explain, what does being Pan-African mean?
Pan-Africanism is the black man's oldest formal political ideology. It predates the Nation of Islam. It predates the Moors, the Hebrews. It predates everyone in a formally structured way. I would summarize it in 3 or 4 simple principles. Principle number 1 of Pan-Africanism, or revolutionary Pan-African nationalism, or Garveyism, which is the highest stage of Pan-Africanism. Principle number 1, all African people, no matter where we live, whether we're dark skin, light skin, Muslim, Christian, whether we speak Spanish or Igbo, Zulu or English, whether we belong to this nation or that nation, whether we're a Kappa or a Q or a Zeta or an AKA, we are all one family. One family. Pan-Africanism is oneness. We identify on the level of family first. So you're never a Muslim who happens to be an African. You're an African who happens to be a Muslim. And the reason why your racial identity supersedes your religious, cultural, professional, and fraternal identity is because all of those are superficial. You can change them. You can stop being Muslim today and Christian next week, but you're African until the day you die. God fixed it permanently so. And because we suffer because of that Africanity more than any other designation, we should also rally behind it more. So we are, as Marcus Garvey said, race first. Number 2, Pan-Africanists believe in self-determination in all things. Whatever we need to do for black people must be done only by black people with no outside influence or finance. So there's no white people in our organizations. There's no black men dating or marrying white girls. If black families have to be built, they have to be built with black men and black women. If black schools have to be built, they have to be built with the money of black people, which is why I'm building FDMG as opposed to trying to take out a charter school application where the state can dictate my every move. We believe in independence. If we can't be independent, we might as well not even be here. The third principle of Pan-Africanism is how Africa goes, so goes all of us. So if you were to say, why haven't black people made more progress in America? I would say because we have not connected our regional struggle in America with the greater international struggle. Blacks in London going through the same thing we going through. Blacks in Canada going through the same thing we going through. Blacks in Paris are going through the same thing we going through. Why are we not internationally networked in this struggle? Because we fail to see that this is a racial thing, not just a black American thing. And until Africa is improved, we will not be improved. Marcus Garvey said, the Honorable Marcus Garvey said, a strong man is strong everywhere. Now, I've spoken on every continent on earth except Australia and Antarctica. Chinese people get respect everywhere I've been. I don't care if I'm in South Africa, Jamaica, Toronto, or New York. Chinese get respect. European Jews are respected wherever I go. Black people are disrespected everywhere I go, including Africa. Why? The respect you get will never be greater than the respect given to your international land of birth. When people see us, they see symbols of Africa. And as long as Africa don't get that respect, we won't, which is why we say, there's a future for black people outside of Africa. but there's no future for Black people without Africa, which leads me to the last point, repatriation. Some of us must return to the mother continent to work for its uplift so she can become the strong body we need her to be. So when Trayvon Martin is shot, the president of Nigeria is calling President Obama to say, excuse me, why was one of my brothers murdered? And Obama comes with his excuse, and the president of Nigeria says, if that happens one more time, don't come here looking for no oil. The president of South Africa can call and say, why was that brother Philando Castile murdered with his daughter in the back seat in Minneapolis, Minnesota? If that happens again, don't come here looking for no diamonds. Make Africa strong so Africa in turn can make us strong. Repatriation for some of us or perish. Let me say this. The one myth of Pan-Africanism that is absolutely not true is that we want to take all Black people back to Africa. Marcus Garvey never said that. I've never said that. And do you want to know why we don't want to take all Black people back to Africa? For the same reason Garvey said. If your ass is no good in Detroit, you damn sure going to be no good in Johannesburg.
And caller, do you have a question for Dr. Umar?
Hello, Dr. Johnson. How you doing?
Peace and love, brother.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello, Dr. Johnson. How you doing?
All is well.
I attended your lecture yesterday. Actually, it was the first time I've ever heard you speak live. And I have to say, for one, I really enjoyed it. And I just would like for you to know what you did for me yesterday. You know, growing up in the church all of my life, I only looked at Jesus through the lens of religion. And just in the last few months, I'll be honest, I was beginning to question not only my faith, but whether or not Jesus existed to begin with. But when I left your lecture yesterday, what happened to me was I began to look at him through the lens of Black liberation. And as opposed to viewing him as what I've been told as the savior of the world, I come to look at him as a man who was Black, just like I am, who was sent here by God. I don't agree that, I don't believe that he was God. I don't believe that, but that he was sent on this earth by God to redeem his people from a mentality. And because of that mentality that he was trying to free his people from, I'm led to believe now that that's why he was killed. And when I was at work this morning, all I kept repeating to myself, which is something that you continuously echoed, was the Romans who handed Jesus over to the Romans. It was his own.
That's right.
So that's what I took from it. Actually, I was at the studio earlier. I left Miss Purdy's CD for you because I'm a poet, and I hope you like it. But that's my first time hearing you, and not only do I believe that Jesus actually existed again, but I look at him through a different lens now, which makes his ministry more credible in my eyes. Than makes it more credible now to me now than it was when I was taught about him growing up as a little boy. So I thank you for that.
Powerful, brother. And I'm glad you said that, because what you just articulated is what we want all Black Christians to do, to begin to see the word of God from a new lens. See Jesus as a Black liberation revolutionary. Read the Gospels as if it is a Black revolutionary text. One of the reasons I love the Shrine of the Black Madonna so much, and shout out to all three of the shrines, because I spoke at the one in Houston this past Saturday, the one in Atlanta just past Thursday, and of course I used to speak at the one here in Detroit, but the crowd got so large it could no longer accommodate. But one thing I love about the teachings of the Shrine of the Black Madonna, Black Christian nationalism, is that they teach, and I hope I'm not representing their philosophy, but from what I've understood, they teach that Christ is an energy. It's not a person. And that Christ goes from person to person based on how God chooses to select his leaders and his anointed persons. So when you say Jesus Christ, Christ was the energy that God put on Jesus. But that same Christ energy was on Martin Luther King. That same Christ energy was on Malcolm X and Medgar Evers and the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey. And it moves from place to place, which is absolutely in line with African culture. And why do I say that? The word Christ comes from an African word, karas, which means the spirit that rises within you. And karas is the root word for charisma. And anyone who is charismatic has been blessed with the karas or the Christ energy. Jesus was only one. There's more to come after him.
Wow.
Thanks for calling, brother.
Dr. Johnson.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Dr. Umar, I have another question.
Yes, ma'am.
Please explain to me, because I heard you say it and I went to look for it. What is HOTEP? H-O-T-E-P?
Oh, Hotep.
Hotep? Please explain that.
Hotep, brother. Hotep is an ancient Egyptian word that means peace. Like you say, salam alaikum.
Yes.
Hotep. Peace be upon you. It has become a cliche to represent all of those who consider themselves to be conscious, whether they are Hebrew, Moor, Garvey, Pan-African, Black nationalism, Black socialism, Nawapian. All of us who fall under the umbrella of Black consciousness are often referred to as Hotepers.
Hotepers.
Yes. Now, for good and for bad. But I will say sometimes, and I'm guilty of this too, I have used the Hoteper cliche to identify or label those who claim to be conscious but are not actually doing the work of Black consciousness. You understand me? So if I see somebody who acting really, really Black, name change, dashiki on, green smoothie, veggie burger, frankincense incense.
Is that being really Black, doctor?
But then I see him get into a $250,000 Mercedes with his white wife. Wow. I'm gonna say that's a Hotepper. So a lot of times we refer to it as people who look real conscious, but they don't really walk the walk that they talk. But generally speaking, Hotep refers to anyone who's under the umbrella of Black consciousness, and more specifically to those who have a strong Egyptian historical or spiritual identity, right?
Okay.
So we got all kind of, like me, I study Ifa, the traditional spiritual system of the Yoruba peoples of Nigeria.
Okay.
You might be Christian, but you can still be Black and conscious. But we got some brothers and sisters, they identify very strongly with traditional Nile Valley culture coming out of the Kemetic civilization of Egypt, right? Okay. They study those deities. They study the kings, the queens, the pharaohs, the spiritual systems, the archaeological work, because ancient Kemet was the greatest civilization of all time. And so people who identify very strongly with Kemetian history, Kemetian culture, Kemetian diet, and Kemetian spirituality are the real Hotepers.
Well, doctor, was it the Benz or was it the white girl?
The white girl over the Benz was the biggest problem.
Okay.
Caller, you're on with Dr. Umar. What's your question?
Yes, doctor. I'd like to know, with all this being said, what is the solution? Where are we going to? We've been discussing this for years and there's no change.
Yes, ma'am. The solution is real simple, but Black people don't want to hear it, which is why we never got into it. The solution for the solution for every problem that affects us is independent institutions and community infrastructure. Period. Okay. White supremacy. Okay, hold on, let me finish. I didn't finish. White supremacy affects us primarily through our dependence on its services and its institutions. The reason why we have so many Black kids being miseducated, we're dependent on their schools. The reason why we have so many Black people receiving poor diet, we're dependent on their supermarket. The reason we have so many Black people getting all these surgeries and dying on the surgical table, because we're dependent on their doctors. We are dependent on our oppressor for our survival, and in that lies the problem. Independence of all things. But you know what the problem with that is? Black people, most of us, are not willing to sacrifice financially for the greater good of the community. Anything the white man provides, we're not willing to pay for it. If he gives our children school, no matter how poor the schools are, We're not going to pay for a private one. If he gives us his own hospitals, we're not going to pay to build our own hospitals. If the white man is providing it because we think he's so great, we will not fund it ourselves. Black people don't really want freedom. They want comfortability under racism.
Okay, that may have some validity. However, the systems of oppression and categories are different. Can they be changed? If you were in charge, if black people pulled together, all the richest blacks in the world pulled together, came up with the cash and tried to do all those things you just explained, what would happen?
Okay. If we were able
Thank
to
you for your call, man.
If we were able to do that, we would be able to reduce our dependence on white structural racism, which would free us from a lot of the pain that we suffer from being dependent on white institutions for our survival. However, even when you build that Black Wall Street, because we've had them before, Rosewood, Florida, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Wilmington, North Carolina, Charleston, South Carolina, and they were burned down by white people with the help of the United States government. Even when we do it, Queen, and I want to be clear, even when we do it, we will still have to fight back against white supremacy. And ultimately, and I know a lot of us don't want to hear this, we're going to have to leave this country at some point. And why is that? Because white power cannot allow black power to live next door. It is a contradiction. The white man killed his own brother for 4 years in the war between the states, 1861 to 1865, because his brother down south said, I want to separate and build my own nation. That was the bloodiest war in American history until Vietnam. If the white man ain't gonna give his own brother a land of his own in America, he damn sure ain't giving black folks their own land in America. We will have to leave at some point.
So, Doctor, I kind of took that last call to mean that if we could come together as a people, we would still have a bunch of problems.
Yes.
And we would, right?
Yes, yes.
But white folks had a bunch of problems when they took this country, didn't they?
That's right.
Okay.
Everyone has to overcome contradictions.
Okay.
Those white men in Philadelphia during that constitutional convention fought like cats and dogs. Somebody was beat to death in debating the new country that they were making. Okay, there is no utopia. China wasn't a utopia during this revolutionary period. America wasn't a utopia during this revolutionary period. And one of our contradictions in terms of black consciousness, too many black conscious people want a perfect revolution. They don't want to get involved unless you can guarantee me I'm not going to lose my job. They don't want to get involved unless you can guarantee me I'm not going to go to jail. They don't want to get involved unless you can guarantee me I'm not going to be audited by the IRS. You follow what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
You have to sacrifice for freedom. Freedom ain't free.
That's
it's
right.
the most expensive thing you can buy because it might cost your blood.
But how can you theoretically even imagine freedom when you don't know what it is?
Or want it.
Or want it.
We hadn't even got to imagining what freedom would look like because black people are still trying to get white people to like them. Isn't it amazing? Every time we have a problem, the first thing we say is we need to pray or vote or protest. You're trying to get white people to champion a black agenda. They will never do that. If white people didn't like you in 1619, and if they didn't like you in 1719, and if they didn't like you in 1819 or 1919, what the hell making you think they're going to like you in 2019? It is sick.
Oh, no doubt.
We gonna be free one day. Lord, oh Lord.
Well, caller, you're on the air with Dr. Umar. Do you have a question?
Hello?
Yes.
Y'all talking to me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, what's up? I'm on here for real with Umar.
Yes.
Wow.
Man,
What's your question?
on, brother? I mean, I'm surprised I got through.
You on, brother. Talk to him.
All right, I will. Hey, brother, I'm a part of the Black Conscious family as well. I follow you, and it's an honor to talk to you. I got a question. I don't know if y'all on a certain topic, but I have a question. I work with Caucasoids. I ain't racist or nothing. But working with them, man, is real hard. They're real passive people. And I want to know, man, what can I do to keep from losing my cool, being extra black and hoodish on them. What can I do?
Wow.
Well, first of all,
black and hoodish. Huh?
When you're dealing with white people, understanding their culture, which is based on Machiavellianism and deception by design, you have to mirror that. White people should never know what you're thinking about them. You must be Machiavellian. You should record everything. Their culture is based on the written word. They will value the written word more than the truth. If it's written down, it's true. If it comes out of your mouth, it's a lie. So you need to write down everything. You need to conceal everything. And then the third thing, you need to be plotting your exit out of there before they put you out of there, because white people don't like to hire black folk for long-term periods of time. So you know that there will be an exit date for you. I would much rather you choose your exit date than have your oppressor choose it for you.
Thank you. Can I say something else? I don't want to hold you up, but like I say, man, it's no biggie, man. It's not like I'm making a gang of money, but it's paying the bills. And I noticed, man, that they looking over me for certain positions. It's I'm a cook, and but I just know this is what they doing. Plus, this is what I learned, brother. You have to have, and I do have this. I got a little game myself, so I know how to draw some white people close to me and milk them for information, and they will give it to you. And you need that when you the only black person around, and that's when they'll tell me, "Oh, they don't like you." Oh,
is that news?
All this, huh?
Is that news?
No, it ain't. Well, you know what? For some of us, it is news because we all don't. All of us don't experience that, brother. Believe it or not, I'm new to it. I mean, it don't surprise me, but I'm new to it, bro. I'm here in West Virginia, and I learned it's just as racist here as it is in Mississippi. So some of this is a little new to me, but I follow people like you. I listen to Farrakhan. I listen to Malcolm X, and it makes me strong, and that's what makes me strong. And you know what I mean? That's what pushed me one step over them, because they don't know. I've been practicing with some real ones. I listen to some real ones. And that's what I want to tell them. Like, it ain't ready for me. I'm part of the Umar, Farrakhan, and Marcus Garvey thing. But that's all I'm saying, man, is that's the dealio. I don't know what to say, because I didn't know I was going to get through the time until I'm freestyling, but it's
Black Power, brother, Black Power.
Thank you, caller. We appreciate you.
Say, but listen, can you say Quan's Peaks, Chuck Smooth and them, and for my boys and them to know, man, they're gonna be excited, man. Can you do that for me?
Quan's Peace and Chuck Smooth. Shout out to you, Dr. Umar Johnson, Prince of Pan-Africanism. Stay up and stay away from them white girls.
Black power, bro.
Thank you, bro.
Thank you, caller. You know what? This brother, to be truthful, he was thirsty.
Okay.
And we got a majority of young men in this era that don't know the racial nigga.
True.
You see what I'm saying? It's this newfound slavery, this newfound oppressiveness that they're confused and discombobulated about.
That's true.
And when they're not, one, conscious, two, educated, they float anything over your head. How do we educate those?
Very true. I think that one of the things we need to go back to is the study group movement. Social network killed the study group movement. Up until 1995, brothers and sisters would get together, watch videos, talk about it. Get together, read books, talk about it. Get together, read articles, talk about it once a week. We used to have a study group at the Marcus Garvey UNIA in Philadelphia. But when Facebook came out, people started saying, I don't have to leave my house. I can watch YouTube and get all the knowledge I want. But what they fail to realize is you're losing the value of the discourse that comes from communication and conversation with like minds and not so like minds. We got to understand that when you're watching YouTube, you can only listen to one person's narrative. But when you're in the study group atmosphere, you have multiple minds bouncing off each other. It's the same thing I say to parents who say, I want to cyber school my child, online charter school. I do not support it. Why do you not support it? Because education is participatory. and communication based and interactive. If your child is working on a subject and a question pops, he wants to bounce it off his teacher. He has to email it and wait for a response. But he's in the moment where the light went on and he needs the clarity now. You don't get that by interfacing with a computer. You only get that by interfacing with a human being. And that's why we need to go back to the study group movement. And that's why we need to put our children in real schools instead of in front of computers thinking a computer can teach a child. A computer cannot teach a child.
Dr. Umar, do you think that not just white and black, or not just black, but do you feel like social media for our people is really making it anti-social?
The good Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. predicted this almost 50 years ago. He said the growth of technology is going to put more space between black people than we have now. And with the growth of technology, it's going to be more different to forge a unity because the devices will keep us apart. Facebook keeps us apart. Twitter keeps us apart because you no longer have to share the same space and time with your brother.
And it seems like we know nothing else but fight, battle, fight, battle.
You can scroll pages and pages of filth. It's a blessing because you're able to advertise. You can advertise without spending any money. I come to Detroit, I can put the flyer up. That's all I have to do. Mm-hmm. So in terms of advertising, it saves you a lot of money. Getting the word out, community events, it's a blessing. But in terms of consciousness and the ability to spew self-hate internationally from a home-based platform with no filter,
can't do it.
That has been a destructive tool in the community, brother.
But doctor, also, I mean, just like we don't own anything in America, we don't own anything in cyberspace. All these platforms that we use are owned by some other folks.
Hey, brother, you speaking to my reality. I'm suspended from Facebook for 30 days for posting my subpoena for the hearing before the State Board of Psychology Monday. Eventbrite sent me a letter and said they don't agree with my views, so I can no longer sell tickets on their platform. In Detroit yesterday, my EventB account kept getting shut down time after time, which led to a lot of brothers and sisters not showing up. Okay, who else? Instagram is no longer allowing me to go live. GoFundMe froze my fundraiser. Look at that. Look at what they're doing to me. They're shutting me down.
But we almost couldn't get on the air today.
Right.
It never happened before. Exactly. In 10 years.
But I don't understand.
They're watching me and following me.
That's cool. I mean, but the thing of it is, you know, just like we don't own anything in America, they tell us that this stuff is free. Oh, you can advertise. Well, this stuff ain't free. We paying a price for this.
That's right.
Because we're losing something.
That's right.
So it's really not free.
That's right. In fact, in psychology, we talk about almost like a translation cost. A little gap of time lost in therapy because you're not focused on your client. And when you add up all them little gaps, it can amount to thousands of clinical hours missed because you took a phone call, they took a phone call, they ran to the bathroom, somebody needed some water. That's what we fail to recognize. Whenever we use other people's systems, we're paying a little transition cost.
Absolutely.
Not in dollars, but in human efficacy that we need. And that's why we have to get into the art of owning our own. But part of the reason we don't own our own, Black people don't want their own. And why don't Black people want their own? Because the Black church has criminalized power and control. If you was raised on church, and all of us was, masjid included. When I say church, I'm speaking of all the religions. We are told from first grade, kindergarten, power, authority, control is the realm of the devil. You should not look to have power, authority, control. That is God's domain.
Why are you looking at me, sister?
Okay.
Because I wasn't.
Dr. Umar saying that.
I wasn't raised like
me?
that. And Dr. Umar, with respect, I was raised in the church. And I was raised with the fact that the Bible says you shall receive power And so in my coming up, I was raised that you have the power to do the things that's necessary to make you successful.
That's
so
not
maybe,
as specific though.
So maybe I'm thinking maybe my world was a little different.
Your church could have been different because it's all about the pastor.
Because
there's exceptions.
Her church always different.
But I'm just saying, that's the way I was raised. I was raised to that you shall have power and you shall. I wasn't raised that we are to be oppressed. I was raised that we are the head and not the tail. We are above and not beneath. We are the lender and not the borrower.
But you may have had a pastor with a black liberation theology. But I think we would probably all agree that most black churches in America do not have a black liberation theology. They tell you that a camel will go through the eye of a needle before a rich man goes to heaven. They tell you that the poor people shall inherit the earth and the meek shall go to heaven. When you hear those lessons day in and day out, it puts you in a mindset that says being broke, being beat down, being laughed at and scoffed at by other people is actually a blessing. Too often we take the struggles of Jesus Christ himself, the beatings and the whippings and the incarcerations that Jesus had to undergo. We transpose that on the black reality and say, maybe we don't need to build our own schools. Maybe we don't need to have our own hospitals. Maybe God wants us to suffer as our price into heaven. And to me, that ain't nothing but slave religion that doesn't do nothing but benefit white supremacy. Let's be clear about something, Queen. Whenever you take over another people's land, whenever you invade another country, there's 3 institutions you take over from the beginning, because you won't be able to rule without the 3. The schools, intellectual slavery, prison, physical slavery, and the church, spiritual slavery. And guess which one is the most important? The church. Because if you can spiritually enslave the people, you ain't even got to build no prisons, because they ain't never coming to get you anyway. They only going to get each other. You follow me?
You know what? And the slave masters used to do that. Yes. Their justification of whipping. Yes. The Lord said that thou did not listen, so therefore I, master, will beat thee.
And what else did they do? They mandated your attendance at church on Sunday during slavery. And guess what? Psychologically, they wanted to make sure any revolutionary energy that was pent up in you got expelled through singing and dancing and scripture reading. Had it not been for the church, there would have been more Nat Turners than Nat Turner. Had it not been for the church, there would have been more Denmark Veseys than Denmark Veseys. Had it not been for the church, there would have been more Gabriel Prosses than just the one Gabriel Prosser, because the slave master made you go to church so that that revolutionary energy could be transformed into a passive aggressiveness, because that's what church puts in black men, a passive aggressiveness. Who on earth loves their enemy? Last time I checked, you're supposed to destroy your enemy, not fall in love with them. Only black folks do that.
Is that why we be singing all together and doing that?
Absolutely, that's why we sing all together.
Let me give you something right now. Let me give you something right now. And it's amazing I'm saying this because a brother just sent me a picture from that day. Y'all remember when Dylan Roof walked into that church?
Right.
In Charleston, South Carolina. I had just flew out 2 days. I just missed that. I flew back. We marched. When we marched against Dylan Roof, we came up to the church, which Denmark Vesey actually belonged to. And I believe the Dylan Roof killing of the Emmanuel 9 was on the anniversary of Denmark Vesey's intended slave revolt. So it was, that whole thing was symbolic. And I don't think the white boy acted alone. But this is the point I want you to get. We're black men and women marching for justice for our non-brothers and sisters. We get up to the church. Guess what we saw? Black church members and white folks holding hands, singing "We Shall Overcome." In 2015, he just killed 6 mothers that cracker killed. And we're singing "We Shall Overcome," holding hands with white folk with the intent of drowning out the shouts of black power from me and the other brothers. I lived to see that sickness.
Church is why Nat Turner embarked upon his uprising.
I totally disagree. Nat Turner was the preacher. He wasn't in nobody else's church. And Nat Turner had a black liberation theology. Nat Turner was one of those exceptions in the church. Bishop Henry McNeil Turner was one of those exceptions in the church. The good Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King was one of those exceptions in the church. Let us not lie. The black church, although it is the institution most responsible for our freedom, liberation, and progress up until the Civil Rights Bill and Voting Rights Act, since the Civil Rights Bill and the Voting Rights Act, the black church in America has reinvented itself. It is no longer the institution of agitation. It has now become a cowardly institution of accommodation.
But do you believe that's for all churches? Because
I told you, Queen, there's exceptions, baby. Okay. Shrine of the Black Madonna is exception. Remember now, I speak in black churches probably more than any other scholar. They love me because I do not have an issue with their doctrine. Mm-hmm. If your politics is strong, mm-hmm. I'm cool. Most of the fathers of Pan-Africanism were Christian preachers. Mm-hmm. Garvey was a Christian too. So I do not have a problem with the doctrine. With church leaders who use the gospel to put their flock to sleep as opposed to wake them up. Every church must be judged on its own merit.
Okay. You're going to be in town tomorrow for an event. Why don't you let our audience know where you'll be tomorrow and how they can get in touch?
Yes, tomorrow, brothers and sisters, in Detroit and surrounding areas, I will be at Nandy's Cafe. Sister Nandy, Queen Mother Nandy's Cafe. She has a cafe, restaurant, books, African cultural items. I will be hosting a special education clinic for black parents tomorrow from 1 until 4. The address is 71 Oakman Boulevard. If anyone in the Detroit community desires a brief conversation with Dr. Umar Johnson, if you have questions about your children, come to Nandy's Knowledge Cafe in Detroit tomorrow, Wednesday, January the 3rd, from 1 p.m. until 4. From 1 until 2, I will be giving a general presentation on the miseducation of black children. And from 2 until 4, I will answer questions, help parents with their paperwork, and meet with members of the community who desire to get my input or participation on their various projects. If you have any questions about that, you can call Nandy's Knowledge Cafe at 313-865-1288. 313-865-1288. Dr. Umar Johnson tomorrow, Detroit, Wednesday, 71 Oakman Boulevard, patient clinic from 1 to 4 at Nandy's Knowledge Cafe.
And y'all want to be down there and make sure you give them support, families. You know, you want to go down there and check on those badass kids. Let him help you out, give you some type of knowledge because they are out of control.
Dr. Umar, I have a question.
Sure.
I was doing my research and I found out that you wrote a dissertation in regards to the relationship between self-concept and academic achievement. Mm-hmm. And so could you highlight some of that information? Because when I tried to dig, it wouldn't allow me to dig deep.
And let me tell you why you were digging. The only way you found my dissertation is if you were looking to see if I was a real doctor.
No, that's not the reason why, sir. What I did was I looked at a video in regards to a rival between you and a gentleman by the name of Seti. Seti. And when he mentioned that, and I kind of disagreed with his comments. Mm-hmm. And so I tried to dig to give myself gratification of disagreeing with him. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I didn't know he spoke on that, but I'm glad I didn't know because I would have responded. But me and him are right now because that was last year's beef. This year's beef is Tyreek. But anyhow, okay. The reason I did my doctoral dissertation on the relationship between self-esteem and academic achievement, or self-concept and academic achievement, is because in special ed, when we evaluate these children, we skip over. We pay no attention. to how they feel about themselves. We go straight to blaming their brain for why they can't read, blaming their parents for why they can't do math. You understand? Blaming poverty. And I'm meeting with kids and I'm saying to myself, the reason he's struggling, he don't believe in himself. Are you following me? So my research found that there is, in fact, a direct relationship between how a child feels about themselves and how they achieve in school. So here's the question. If a child's self-esteem has a direct bearing on their academic achievement, if your son is in a classroom being taught by a white racist female, and she's constantly criticizing and belittling him, is it possible that his scores are suffering because of academic abuse from that white lady in the classroom?
Absolutely.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I read this book when my son was younger, and it said From My Brown Eyes. And it was a book in regards to the fact that this young man was in school, and his teachers had blue eyes, and he was writing this from his perspective, a brown-eyed African American that's being taught by no one that has the same color eyes as himself. And one of the things that he mentioned in that book was the fact that how can they even relate to his fight or to his plight, even recognize the fact that his eyes is different than theirs. They don't take the time to look him in the face.
And that's exactly why I do not think black parents should put black children in white private schools. The white teacher don't have to say anything negative about black people. Just being surrounded by kids who are totally different and who are being treated like they're better than you is enough to permanently destroy the self-esteem of any black child. White private school. If I have to choose between keeping my child in a ghetto, quote unquote, hood school and put them in a white private school, I'm going to choose the hood school. And why? They may have to fight to go home, but I ain't got to worry about nobody breaking their opinion of themselves. Putting them in that white school, their opinion of themselves can be broken. The research shows that teachers pay more attention to children who look like their own biological children. So if my teacher is white and her son is white with blue eyes, and I'm black hair with black skin and big lips, how much attention am I going to get in that classroom? Not much.
You're absolutely telling the truth, Doc. I mean, I've experienced that with one of my sons. I'm talking about a kid that was a standout basketball player since he was the age of 7 years old. I moved to the suburbs to thinking I was giving my family a better life and putting my children in a better school. This white woman destroyed my son, destroyed him. She played kids in front of him that he had dominated his whole life. He no longer wants to play sports at all, period. And when I went to the school to address this issue, the principal was a dude that I grew up in my neighborhood. He was a Milano kid, right? I protected this dude when we were growing up. And he said to me, when I confronted him about what was going on with my son, he said, well, we're gonna bring this up, man, but you can't use the word racism. You can't. I said, what do you mean, man? I said, firstly, I'm a grown man. How in the hell can you tell me what words to use when I'm talking to you about my son and the problems that he's having?
That's right.
When I used to protect you in our neighborhood from getting your head cracked.
You could look out for my boy.
But it's so true what you're saying, man. If I had it to do all over again, I would drive my kids to school in the ghetto. If I had it to do all over again, because what we don't, when we're looking for that higher education that we think that we're going to get, you're going to lose something way more important.
Yes.
It's absolutely the truth.
Yes.
It's absolutely the truth. And what it does to a boy is devastating. I mean, really. This kid went from being the loudest dude to the quietest dude.
It hurt him.
It hurt him bad. And then they had a white woman as his head coach.
Really?
Yeah, this was a white woman. This is high school now. Not saying that women aren't qualified.
Right.
But it was a double culture shock for my son. First, he's never had a woman trying to tell him how to play the game that he clearly knows how to play. Wow. That's number one. Number two, she wasn't qualified. And number three, she was a racist. Oh, but I couldn't call her out as a racist because then that would make me look like I'm a racist. How am I a racist? Because I'm saying she a racist. I ain't in control of nothing.
Right.
But she's in control of my son's future.
Right.
And she did what she wanted to do with it. She ruined it. That is the truth. Period.
Wow.
Period.
And that's going on right now. Yes. That people feel like they taking their child to a suburban school. They coming out of this ghetto environment. They just want them to have an opportunity. But when you get in there, you just break them down piece by piece.
Absolutely the truth.
By the time they get to high school, they disastrous.
But isn't it a fact
she got green contacts, head full of, you know what I mean? You see it.
Yeah, you
chocolate girl with green contacts and a blonde head.
It's the truth. I mean,
they destroyed a whole concept of beauty.
But you know, people, I can hear in people's voices, and that's why I like to talk to people, because I want to hear their voices. And I notice when people say things about you, doctor, it's like I haven't heard you say anything that had anything to do with being racist to no other people. I've never heard you say it. And now here you're here in our studio, and I still haven't heard you say it. And I've tried to press you into seeing if that's what your views really are. But we as black people don't understand that it is impossible for us to be racist in this land.
Yes, it is.
In this land, it can't be done.
No, it can't. No, it can't.
But every time you try to give this knowledge and these jewels to these folks, I was watching a brother yesterday who was speaking negatively of you. And I listened to the dude because I knew you were coming on. And I said, well, okay, but you haven't offered up any proof.
That's right.
Give me some proof that the dude. He said, well, ask Umar what he did with the money. No, you show me what he didn't do with the money.
Right. Guilty until proven innocent.
Show me what he didn't do with the money. That's because right. I heard you yesterday and you said, well, this is how much money I got and this is what I'm trying to do with it.
That's right.
So if you get to the point to where somebody say, okay, man, well, here goes something for $500,000 and you turn it down, then I got to question where the money went.
That's right.
But right now, how can I question your money anyway, period?
And the sad thing about it, Baba, as I shared in my lecture yesterday, the number one school, if I had the money, would be the Academy of Southfield. Anybody can drive by it.
I'm aware of it.
Clean, don't need no work, extra modular units. They want 1.5. We only got 700. So it hurts because you got people talking about you stealing when you ain't even got enough to buy a small building that you do want. You see that? So they're talking about the money you got. And
it doesn't make sense.
I don't even got enough to get what I want to get. And y'all talking about why I ain't bought a school yet.
But see, we have to get to the place that we understand when things don't make sense, they probably aren't true.
Exactly.
I mean, that's common sense. You're born with that. I don't have to have what you got, Doc, to understand that.
Yes, sir.
And so can you share, I'm playing Angel's Advocate, sir. Can you share that, do you have a 501c3?
Do I have a 501c3? That's in process.
Okay.
But you don't need a 501c3 to open a school.
But I was just about to ask what.
But we're asking
you don't
the
have
question.
to have one.
You don't need a PhD either, do you?
No, you don't. And you don't need a doctorate or a school psychology certification or a principal certification.
And so also to play Angel's Advocate, I read that number one, you have not only a doctorate degree, but you also have 2 certifications in special ed. Am I correct?
have a school psychologist certification, school principal certification. I used to have a national certification in school psychology. I voluntarily gave it up because I didn't believe the National Association of School Psychologists was doing enough to keep black boys out of special ed. So I voluntarily gave it up. Okay. I also have 3 master's degree, 1 in clinical psych, 1 in school psych, 1 in ed leadership. and I have 2 bachelor's degrees.
And so these, just because, help me out with clarity. These degrees and these certifications, you went through the process of going and taking the classes.
Millersville University, Lehigh University,
and
Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine. All of them are top-ranked schools in their region. And these ain't no around the corner schools. Like, you got to work your way through these places.
And at the end of the day, if you didn't receive a scholarship, you had to pay to go to these schools, correct?
Yes.
And then at the end of the course, after you did your clinicals, you received a certificate or a degree from the president or the dean or the prelate or the emeritus.
Provost,
I'm listing them all, giving you the right to have those certificates, those degrees. That doctor degrees. You earned it.
You got that card.
I got them at home.
Okay, and so you have them at home, and you have their signatures.
Why they ain't in your pocket?
And you have their signatures. And this is, I'm coming to something. You have their signatures from these presidents of these schools, high ranked schools. So my question is, since you earned it, since you paid for it, since you worked toward it, why should someone else take it away from you?
Or how are they able to take
it away from you?
They can't take your degrees away from you ever, but they can take your certifications away. In terms of my school psychologist certification that they want to take away, and they want to prevent me from ever becoming licensed, they're claiming that I hold myself out as a licensed clinical psychologist as opposed to a doctor of clinical psychology. Now, what is the difference between a licensed clinical psychologist and a doctor of clinical psychology? The only difference is the person with the license, after they got their doctorate, they worked for 1 year full-time or 2 years part-time under someone who's already licensed to give them supervision. And then they took their national psychology exam and their state psychology exam, and they earned the license. So you might say, well, doc, why didn't you just go and get your license right after you got your doctorate? Number one, I didn't know black people would try to destroy me like this. Number two, the other reason why I didn't do it is because I'm so busy with what I do in the community. I wasn't willing to give white folk another year of my life. I had to give them a year for my pre-doc. You got to do an intern to get your doc, and then you got to do another one to get your license. I just wasn't interested. And part of the reason why my school psychologist certification is my expertise. Working with children is what I do. Let's say I got the license. What would that allow you to do, doc? It would allow me to work with adults and get reimbursed from your medical insurance if I provide you with therapy or do a psychological evaluation. My expertise is in children and in special ed and in school psych. So I really didn't need the license because I don't really do anything in that area, right? But let's say I wanted to evaluate you, or you wanted me to evaluate you. I would simply get a licensed psychologist, say, listen, I got an eval to do. I do up the eval. They sign off on it. Life goes on. I do clinical work. It's just that the licensed psychologists sign off. So then you might say, doc, why don't you just take a year off, maybe while you build an FDMG, and go get your license, right? Because at this stage of the game, all of white psychology and psychiatry knows who I am. I don't know if there's a state in America that would grant me a license. Why go through all that only to have them crack and say we ain't giving it to you anyway at this point? You follow what I'm saying?
Well, doc, all you got to do is give everybody some pills, and they'll let you keep it.
Well,
everybody you see, just give them some pills.
Their official reason for Monday's hearing is people are complaining about you holding yourself out as something that you're not. That's their official reason, right? The real reason is they're tired of me saying that people ain't born gay. They're tired of me saying black men ain't got no business with white girls. They're tired of me telling black parents, stop putting your kid in special ed. They're tired of me saying that Ritalin ain't nothing but crack. They tired of me waking up black parents. And I believe it's beginning to cost them financially. I'm messing up the money train.
Absolutely, you are.
And that's why they want me silenced. But what they fail to realize, take the paper or not, I'm not going to stop doing what I'm doing.
They want to put my son on Ritalin and tell me it wasn't even a narcotic.
Ritalin is classified by the DEA as a Schedule B drug. It is in the same category as cocaine and opium. And anyone who doesn't believe it can go to their library and look that up. Ritalin, which is methylphenidate, is in the same category as cocaine and opium.
And he's not lying, ladies and gentlemen, because I was on it when I was in the penitentiary with anger and temperament.
The white boy told me that it's not a narcotic and it only stays in the child system for 8 hours.
That's a lie.
Just give it to your son when he's at school.
That's a lie.
Oh, I knew it was a lie.
How you gonna?
That's why.
Check. It's only one molecule away from crack. How you gonna lock up all these black men for selling dope? And you give the same drug that sent his father to jail. Absolutely. You will give it to his son in school so he can sit still long enough to learn about Christopher Columbus. Wow.
And so, Dr. Umar,
yes, ma'am.
We have a caller, sister.
Oh, yes, caller. Are you still on the air?
I'm still here.
Thank you for waiting.
Go ahead with your question.
All right, Dr. Umar, it's a big pleasure to be on the line with you, man. Been rocking with you for a long time. Ups and downs, general, along the way. So I do got to apologize for not being 100% thorough. But now, the more you talk, like tonight you've been talking, the more I just know I need to be staying steadfast on standing behind you and keep on moving. I got my master's degree, so like you said, I'm not in this to be edutained. I'm not here to be, doing buck dances, puppet shows to keep me in line. Like I need to really.
That's right.
So you keep on doing what you're doing. I used to follow one of your somebody who put the shows up on 6 million views, but that thing ain't up no more. I think they took that down.
Probably.
Yeah, so I used to rock with you heavy on that and listen to all the radio shows, man, because it gets me through, man. When you think you out here and you got everything up against you, got like you said, we talked about the problems, but I'm gonna get to my questions. Okay, I just want to let you know, man, you really mean a lot to everything you stand for. The energy you bring, man, that's so huge and powerful in your brain too. You ain't no dummy.
Wow.
Far from it. So I really appreciate what you're doing. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I just had if I can. This is just a reservation. It's not something I want to contend against a point that you bring or a belief. But a lot of folks come to Hotep late. And this is gonna go towards talking towards your school, because when you talk about building a school, you want to raise them up early.
Mm-hmm.
You want to get it into the kids early. But right now we kind of have it where a lot of folks only, I won't say conscious or Hotep, only when they down on their luck. They go to prison and they finally come full circle. They see the Jews stop writing them check in the entertainment industry, so now they want to come back to the table. You know what I mean? They see all their little hustles, street hustles dry up, so they want to come back to the table now and start trying to see what they can do here. And this is when folks kind of, they still a kid on the spiritual movement as far as what you teaching kids early. And what you go teach kids early, they kind of learning late in the game. So a lot of brothers get stuck in that point where they just still spiritually a baby. They still kind of need to go to one meeting to the next and, to be powered up. But, if you got a school and what you go do is teach young black men how to really know their community, know their identity, I think it's good that, you really expose them to other races, because then they,
Go ahead, brother. He's listening.
I said it. No, I was gonna say, like you said, when how they see white people, how they see, when you a kid and you raised in the right way, you can go out to the world. So you
probably because you're trying to hear yourself.
Turn your radio down a little bit.
No, I got it down, but it's all good. When you raise them young, and they can go out in the world and confidently stick up for who they are, they got to know other races and culture. They got to know that people out there, even white people, that they can do business with and still come back to their community, even if they come back to that school only. They got to be exposed to the world, and also they got to get these self together. So I wanted to kind of really just. If you say no white people, no mixed people at the school, I just had a little reservation on that one issue. Not to say I'm going to pick against it, but I think they got to get exposed to what's out there in the world, the real world.
Mm-hmm. Let me clarify first in terms of mixed race. One of the principles of Pan-Africanism is that we do not practice eugenics within our community. So if a so-called biracial African child, that being a black boy and later a girl when we open up the girls' academy, if they have a white mother or a white father, as long as one of their parents is African, they are African and they will not be denied entry into the school. So Dr. Umar doesn't have any issues with so-called biracial children as long as they identify with their Africanity. So that will not be an issue at all. Some of the greatest Pan-Africanists were mixed race themselves. We don't believe in interracial marriage, but we do not hold the product of interracial marriage responsible for how they got here because they had no control over that. As far as white folks, yes, I can almost guarantee you that there will be a white employee or two. Why do I say that? Because number one, I don't want to get sued, okay, for discrimination, obviously. Right. And number two, I want to make sure my boys don't get cheated out of the football games and get cheated out of the basketball games. If you need a couple white folks there and present to make sure things go smoothly. So we will have a couple Caucasians. So if you know of any good white folks, tell them to send a resume in.
All right, Umar, it's been a blessing, man. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you.
Okay.
I want to show you something else.
Before you get to that, Sandman, I'm gonna let you have that. I definitely want you all to know because my phone, I'm gonna shut Facebook down, I guess. Mm-hmm. So I wanted you to know that we support brothers and sisters doing their thing, and we're giving Dr. Umar a copy of Tory Blue's book. If you knew better, you would do better. Now you know, no more excuses. It's a book of her poetry, and she's an amazing writer as well as she is a hip hop artist. So
where's that package y'all had with?
It's right here. You got I just was trying
no problem.
See what was in there, and then T. Harris, which was one of our callers. He was also the young man that was there yesterday. He has a T-shirt line called "Blame Detroit for Everything," which is an awesome line. But he also does poetry, and he has that in there for you as well. So I just wanted to say that. And before we get to you, Sandman,
any money in there for that school?
Any money, we will definitely, but that was a question a lot of people were asking yesterday. So if the site is GoFundMe is shut down, how do they start donating now?
They need to donate the way that I originally wanted everyone to donate. I want to make sure people are clear that I never wanted to start a GoFundMe campaign. The only reason why I did it is because brothers and sisters began to complain that it was too labor intensive and tedious to write a check or get a money order, put it in an envelope, affix a stamp to it, and drop it in the post office. I was receiving hundreds of complaints. Did not catch up with the digital age. Who's still mailing donations in the mail? Everybody donates online, and as a result of Negro laziness, that $400,000 that we raised on GoFundMe, of course, the other 300 was mail-in. But of the $400,000 raised on GoFundMe, approximately 150,000 of that went to GoFundMe.
That's what people don't know.
We gave white folks $150,000 for free,
for nothing,
for the convenience of an online donation. I'm saying that to say, Baba, I'm glad they shut the damn site down. Because when you mail in a check or money order, we keep every penny of that donation. Exactly. But when you donate online, they take about 15-20% of that.
Yeah, and then so the people will know, doctor, if you don't reach your goal on these donation sites, they still get their percentage.
Yeah, they take it out front.
But you don't get what you're trying to raise.
And they don't let the public know how much they take. Exactly. So you'll see 402,000. There's nothing that says GoFundMe fees, 150,000. So people think you get that whole 400. We probably got about 275 of that.
Melanie Payne said you're correct. You were fighting the GoFundMe in the beginning.
Not only that, GoFundMe said we want to see the bank statement to make sure the money's there, and we want your contact information to your realtor in Detroit. I sent them both a couple days ago. The bank statement and the realtor info. They just wanted to call the realtor to make sure I was really looking for a school, and the bank statement to make sure I didn't touch none of the money. How about I sent them both and they still shut it down? It was never about the truth, Baba. They wanted to shut me down.
Yeah. But that's he was just making sure you was doing business with his cousin. That's all. And then when he in fact found out that you were, Then that wasn't good enough. He shut you down.
But I can't blame racism all the way, Baba.
No, you can't.
Because who were the people complaining to GoFundMe that I was a fraud and that I was stealing and that the account was a farce? Black people.
Mm-hmm.
It was my own people that got GoFundMe stopped. It was my own people that got me brought up on charges with the State Board of Psychology. It was my own people that have gotten me audited. These are black people who
That's
have
so shameful.
Just like they took Marcus Garvey to the government, jealous W.E.B. Du Bois, and jealous A. Philip Randolph and the rest of them Negroes went to the government on Marcus Garvey and begged the white man to get rid of their brother. That's the same thing these coons doing to me in 2018.
It's absolutely disgraceful, man. And
I don't understand the concept of why you cannot have a GoFundMe, because GoFundMe, people put the craziest
they do
things on GoFundMe
to get money for,
like people who know that you need some life insurance, and you know you need some life insurance.
Mm-hmm.
You will go buy a $5,000 TV. You will go put hundreds of dollars on your kids' feet.
Mm-hmm.
You will go buy $1,000 outfits, but you will not go and buy no life insurance.
Mm-hmm.
But then when your loved one passed, you want to go on GoFundMe and you want the world to pay to bury your family.
And and I agree with her on that. Don't you feel like that may be some type of way that we think that we're going to come up?
Oh,
I mean, if your son out there doing armed robberies, why you out there doing armed robberies when you ain't got no damn health insurance? I mean, no life insurance.
And so even
I mean, let your family at least come up if your dumb ass got killed doing something.
Y'all done went off.
There was even a write-up.
Y'all done went off.
To go to that, there was even a write-up about a lady who obtained $1 million from a lottery. And when she obtained $1 million from the lottery, her boyfriend went to jail, and she literally had to pay all of that money to keep him out of jail. And she went to GoFundMe because now she needed a home. She lost her home. And so my thing is, you mean to tell me GoFundMe is going to allow her to keep a GoFundMe page, but won't allow you to keep a GoFundMe page to build a school?
The difference is, in none of them cases you named, I don't think their own people were complaining to GoFundMe every single day, writing letters. There's a woman on YouTube. She has a whole page dedicated to destroying me, where she has a tutorial video on
Was she like you?
She doesn't show her face. She doesn't show her face. She has a whole tutorial on how to report Dr. Umar to GoFundMe.
But Dr. Umar, I know that you knew before you went on this journey.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you knew what these folks was going to try to do to you.
Yes.
I think the surprising part is the percentage of your own people that are involved.
Yes. I'll give you something else, Bob. There's a lot of brothers and sisters who are coming to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania on Monday to support me with the hearing. Guess what? I have detractors going too.
Right.
Not necessarily to speak against me in the hearing, but to be there in hopes that I lose my paperwork. Yes.
But if you lose your paperwork, are these people so stupid that they don't understand?
You're hurting our kids. Because that paperwork gives me the ability to change misdiagnoses. You hurting our kids, and they're willing to destroy our children just to get at me.
So why are they so mad at you if you know?
Let's deal with GoFundMe first of all.
Now I'm talking about your people.
Exactly. One of the reasons they have been trying to get GoFundMe to shut me down, they've now been successful as of yesterday, I think, is because many of these Negroes have had their own GoFundMe accounts for various Hotep reasons.
Wow.
And most of them haven't been able to raise more than $5,000 or $10,000. They look at my page and say, this man got almost $500,000. That breeds jealousy. Why would y'all give him this much and y'all only gave me this or that? But what they failed to recognize, Baba, none of you were trying to build an institution. Your GoFundMe was to get a new car or to build a new conscious library for yourself or to raise money so you can fly around and teach people. It wasn't about the people. It was about you. So jealousy, Baba, jealousy at the love that my people have for me, number one. Now let's talk about overall. When you look at all the conscious personalities, because most of them are not scholars, most of them do not have degrees. They're self-taught ghetto scholars, which is fine, because I believe anybody can teach.
Absolutely.
None of them have my credentials. None of them have my oratorical skill. None of them have my international platform. None of them get the love that I get from Black people. None of them have a support base as diverse as mine that goes from 8 to 80 years old. Jealousy, Baba. When I came into the international scene back in 2010, I had been lecturing since 2000 when I became a school psychologist. But in 2010, everything changed. That's when I really exploded because of a Chicago TV interview I did and a lecture in Harlem. Them two things happened September 18th and Halloween night of 2010. Overnight, the world knew who I was. I just kind of kicked open the door, took over. A lot of people's egos suffered because of that. Because I was the new kid on their block, okay? And I went straight to the top. And people were saying stuff like, is he an agent or is he a fraud? Where did he come from? How does somebody come out of nowhere and just steal the shine like this?
They don't ask that about their pastors.
I know. One brother who's very famous in the conscious community, I'm not going to call his name, he told somebody in 2011, don't worry about him. He just the new face right now.
Right.
He gonna pop for a minute and then he gonna die off. That was 7 years ago. I'm still number one. But I don't do this to be number one. I do this to make a difference for God's number one people, and that's us. And the problem with my detractors, Baba, is they can't see the sincerity of my work because they're so caught up in my degrees.
Well, doctor, maybe they don't want you telling them that they God's number one people. Why don't you just say the people? Because they don't want to be number one. No, they don't want to be number one.
Dr. Umar, a lot of the people on Facebook are asking, what is the address to send donations?
Donations can be sent payable to FDMG. That is an acronym for Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy. You can spell it out if you like, or you can just put FDMG Academy, P.O. Box 6872, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania 19132. I repeat, FDMG Academy, P.O. Box 6872, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania 19132. Make sure your name, your mailing address, your phone number, and your email is either enclosed with the donation or on the donation. Please don't send cash if you can help it, because I want to keep track of every donation. When we finally open up the school, which will be soon, because August 21st, 2019 is the date. August 21st, 2019 is the date, because that is our 400th anniversary, Baba. 1619 to 2019. That is our 400th anniversary under white oppression. That's the day the school going to open. But before that day comes, I'm going to have a reception to honor everyone who donated to FDMG, with special honors to those who donated a lot to FDMG.
That's awesome.
I don't want, brother, I'm starting to worry about you. With the people engaging in the kind of things that they're behaving in, and you're moving around kind of freely. And, I was watching last night, I was monitoring the event. And although it was peaceful, with the stuff and the rhetoric that I was seeing online, I'm starting to worry, man, you might have to start tightening up.
Well, there was security there.
Yeah, it was.
There was security. Oh, yeah. I always have security at all my events. I always have my security whenever I'm making like a public appearance. But in terms of my travel, I'm not at a point where I'm comfortable enough to have a regular security team travel around with me as the minister does. But as you can see, his son, Mustafa, is in charge of that security team.
Absolutely.
So you can't get to my daddy unless you come through me.
Absolutely.
I don't have a son. I have 2 daughters. And when I study our great leaders, Baba, nearly everyone was betrayed from within his security team. Malcolm X.
That's the truth.
Dr. King. Fred Hampton. Patrice Lumumba. I can go on and on. Nearly every great was betrayed by the security. My security protects me from white supremacy. Who the hell gonna protect me from my security? I feel safe for Baba. Flying alone, driving alone, until I get into the city, then I meet my security. But I ain't had good luck with brothers. Most of the brothers I done met these 7, most of them, they quick to turn jealous, man. They quick to turn jealous. Yesterday I was online.
What about those you grew up with?
If they're not in jail or dead or can't be found, you know, I would need to find some of them. But my day ones from North Philly, that's not a bad idea. I might need to call on some of them.
You said yesterday you were
if they're not on probation, and you know what I mean.
They can't travel.
You said yesterday you were online and what?
And it was a sister from London, England, who wanted to invite me there to speak, and I did not follow up on her invitation. She got on my page and called me a fraud and said I was stealing money, but she's mad I didn't go to London. There was another sister from Ohio who was a member of my parent association. She quit because she didn't want to do any work. She made a joke against me in support of that other coon. In other words, Tommy Sotomayor, another idiot, he texted me and wanted an interview about the beef I'm having with Goddess Nashida. And I didn't give him his interview, so he did a whole live feed condemning me. I'm bringing this up because I want you to know that nearly every hater, they're not an innocent hater or a sincere hater. They're angry for a reason. Are you following me? Mm-hmm. I'm angry because you won't let me make money off you. I'm angry because you won't date me. I'm angry because you won't let me host you at an event. I'm angry because you won't give me an interview. Nearly every hater I got has a personal, selfish reason for why they do not like me.
Do you know James P. Cooper, the 6th, just got on my thing and said, fraud.
I don't know.
Fraud.
In fact, most of my
but ask him, tell him, okay, tell him to tell us why
you think he
what did he do fraudulent?
Because somebody told him.
While he's trying to figure that out, Stefan Terrell is a barber here in Detroit. He said he wanted to let you know if you ever needed services here in the city. He's a young black man and actor. Then look him up.
Appreciate you, bro.
So, Dr. Umar, where will you be staying when you come and build a church? Build a school in Detroit?
I would have to figure that out. That's why I asked yesterday in the book sign. I asked people, where should I live if the school ends up in Detroit? So y'all would have to help me.
In the Boston East Side. You should live in the Boston Edison area.
Yeah.
Or Indian Village. Indian Village.
Okay, so Dr. Umar, when I say these words, tell me the first thing that comes to your mind. Then we're going to get Sandman's question. And then before we get out of here, because I truly appreciate you giving us this time. We've been on here for a minute. Yes. So, and then we also want you to know you can do the Dr. Umar show here on Vent Radio from Philly or wherever you may be in Korea.
Like you did
all of
that
2
weeks ago.
And you see the video there. We can have you come on in, Google Hangout, all of that. Just keep that in mind, Dr. Umar. But anyway, so the first word I'm going to say is the Honorable Marcus Garvey.
Greatest black leader of the 20th century.
ADHD.
Fraud.
Tariq Nasheed.
Manipulator and exploiter of black consciousness for personal gain.
Boyce Watkins.
Swagless penguin midget.
Black women.
Love of my life.
Umar.
Uncompromising.
January the 8th.
Crucifixion.
Detroit.
My second home.
And last, Aquarius.
My mother's sign.
Oh, that's so wonderful.
We are good people. We are good people. Thank you very much.
Dude, is that stuff real?
I don't know, but
signs and all
I told Dr. Umar my birthday was February 5th, and I was making sure he loved Aquarius.
Did he say happy Aquarius?
No. He's going to say happy birthday.
I'll just
yes,
go ahead, Sam.
Listen, I need to turn this.
No, you good.
I'm sounding.
You sound good.
Dr. Umar, my question is, and this is something that is addressed, but people don't address it in the proper way, and I think it's a purity disrespect to us as black people. Now, I got a paper here with the list of civil rights leaders.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to know, are you familiar with a couple of them out of this whole array of people out of just for civil rights for black and struggles? Now here's something, just a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people that I'm gonna give you the names of and see if you can relate to their struggle.
All right.
Harry Hay from 1912 to 2002. He's an early leader in the American LGBT rights movement of the founder Machina Scene Society.
Not interested.
Harvey Milk.
I know Harvey Milk, another gay leader.
Marsha P. Johnson.
No.
Gay liberation activist, star co-founder of AIDS activists with ACT UP. Will Roscoe.
That sounds familiar.
He's American gay rights activist.
Okay.
And Stephen Goldstein.
Also sounds familiar.
He is American gay rights activist and a political activist. Now, the reason I call these names out is you see right here, it's listed here, a list of civil rights leaders. How can you just destroy all these people's work? And just these number of people have created such a movement. It's like all this is what? I mean, you say it's civil rights, or that's what they say. But I look at it as a civil choice. What do you think about that?
I agree. Unfortunately, the homosexual agenda has become so powerful. And it's ironic that a black president made it so in Barack Obama. He's the only president in American history to openly champion LGBT freedoms and equality, that they have been able to eclipse the black agenda with the homosexual agenda. In fact, black people are basically being told that if you don't support gayness, you will get no rights yourself. And unfortunately, we have empowered this gay movement because so many black LBGTs identify with being gay before they identify with being black. So we're fueling that movement against our own selves, because a white person can be gay, but they're still a white supremacist. A gay white male or a lesbian white woman still benefits from powers and privileges that a heterosexual black or gay black will never experience. It is always race over sex, not sex over race.
Wow.
And I feel that that's absolutely right, because you feel like if I give up my identity, if I give up my rights, if I'm already fighting for civil rights, but if I just give up this, maybe I'll be accepted in this world. And you will never be accepted in this arena.
Never be. And I think it's also ironic that when you study slavery, homosexuality was something that was introduced into our community through white slaves. Okay, it's in the slave record. It's not a lot of it there because a lot of black men who were victimized didn't want to admit that as a stain against their manhood. And then when I look at black women with the feminist movement, another so-called minority issue that they're using to eclipse the black agenda with, I find that the black woman's unification with the white woman to be rather odd, since the white woman was the black woman's major opponent on the plantation. It was the white woman who made her husband sell your babies away to prove that he had no affection for them. It was the white woman who made her husband beat the hell out of the black woman to show that he was not in love with her. The white woman was extremely insecure about the black slave woman. And so here we come 150 years later. Now she's your best friend.
Or your man.
Or your man.
she sir.
Can I enroll my homosexual niece into the school?
Sure. I don't mind if gay children come to my school because I am of the opinion that there are no gay black children, only confused black children.
And they try to make you seem like that you're going against just that reason.
Exactly. Bring him in.
Not cool.
You gay, come on in. By the time he's done learning what it really is to be a black man, he's going to love it so much. He'll never want nothing else but his natural God-given gender identity.
There you go.
In your opinion, doctor, in your opinion, is the black church a
parasite? Is an economic parasite.
I'm not even going to ask the question.
It's an economic parasite.
I couldn't even get the question.
It is a black church is an economic parasite. It takes too much from us and gives us almost nothing in return for it. Tangible. There is no admission fee to heaven. There is no admission fee for death. There is no admission fee to save souls. So an institution that doesn't need money to do the work that it does, why does it take so much and give back so little? the money that these mega churches are making and raising, but you ain't got a bank, a school, a supermarket, or a hospital. That's unacceptable.
You know, I'm almost jealous of you for that.
There are exceptions to the rule. And all churches are not parasites. There are churches that are there for the greater good of the community. For example, when you talk about a church with a school, Perfecting Faith has a wonderful performing arts school.
Is it free?
Yes, it is. It's free. Yes, it is free.
All right.
Straight Gate has a wonderful school that caters to the African American that is sponsored by the church.
But does it cater to the African?
It caters to the African American.
I didn't ask you that. I said does it
do Pan Africa? I don't think so.
Okay.
But it still caters to the African family.
So that means that it is teaching our children about America and what America wants.
Right.
You don't necessarily know that. You don't know that because we haven't been in that school to see what they teach.
No, sister, but I understand that if that school sits in America and it's getting funding, it teaches what America wants to be taught.
Not necessarily, because for example,
I don't know of any church with a school that teaches any sort of a Black power theology to its students. I don't know of one. That might be an exception, but I don't know of one.
That would be Perfecting Faith. Perfecting Faith believe in teaching their children about their race. They do.
Well,
but
they do.
And they believe. Are we talking about basic Black history, or are we really talking about making unapologetically African Black boys and girls? Like, what are we talking about? A couple pictures for February? Like, and I'm not knocking them. I'm just saying that we can't confuse true schools that are focused on Black liberation with schools who have a superficial acculturation to Blackness. There's a big difference there.
Umar, my sister is a psych nurse in Norristown.
Norristown, Pennsylvania?
Yes. And she
right outside of Philly?
Yes.
What she look like? I'm just kidding.
She's beautiful. She said, ask if he has any connects in Philly. I want to move into a practice manager position.
Give him my cell number.
Okay. He said, give you.
And by the way, I give everybody my cell number because it's the public's number. FBI got it. You should have it. 215-989-9858. 215-989-9858. Last time, 215-989-9858.
Doctor, the gay folks don't call you and cuss you out.
I don't answer the phone, but you can send me a text message.
Caller, you're on the air with Dr. Umar. What's your question?
Hello, caller. You're on the air.
Hey, it's your favorite caller, man.
Oh no, it ain't gonna happen today, bro.
What? No, you don't want
to No.
Bye, bro.
He's a child, and Dr. Umar would
tear him to pieces.
He'd be crying.
He called us last week and said he had a bunch of dead niggas in his basement. What should he do with them?
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
He's about 12 or 13 years old.
Call my show too. Tripping. Yeah. I was like, oh, bro, you got to go.
But the beautiful part in that to me is that now you know what they're doing at their dinner tables. Now you know what they're talking about, what they're teaching their boys.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Dr. Umar, we're going to shut the show down. But before we do, does anyone have any final question they want to ask Dr. Umar?
Well, I definitely want to remind everyone about tomorrow.
Right, at Mandy.
Cafe,
yes.
71 Oakman Boulevard. Feel free to come out if you want to talk to me, chat with me. Help, you need help with your child assistance. Again, I will do an opening presentation from 1 until 2, and then the special education, regular education clinic will be from 2 until 4. Come on out, support Black business. Nandy's Knowledge Cafe, Dr. Umar, tomorrow, Wednesday, January the 3rd, from 1 until 4, 71 Oakman Boulevard.
313-865-1288 is the number, and also your new book,
Psychoacademic Holocaust.
You can also get that book for $20, and you can get it by going to drumarjohnson.com.
Now, Dr. Umar, before we get out of here, if you had the ear and attention of every single Black person right now, what would you say to them? What would be your message?
I would say that we have been marked for extermination, and the only people who control whether it happens or not is ourselves. And the way we are able to fight back against that extermination, to reverse the campaign, is to focus on education and economics, schools and banks. With those two things, we can change this whole situation around. And no matter what else we build, without those two things, we will never fix our situation. Education and economics is the only way out of this.
Now, my last final question. I'm sorry. If
I thought that last one was your
it
last
was, but then I forgot I didn't ask another question. If they were to take your credentials from you on Monday, what's your next step, or what do you feel would be your next move?
I keep going. Nothing changes. In fact, I'm gonna go even harder. And I don't even know if I can go harder than I go hard all the time, but it'll hurt me for a little bit because I've identified as being a school psychologist for almost 20 years. I love doing it. I love helping our kids. I love taking misdiagnoses off of babies. And for the kids who do need special ed, I love getting them the services that they need. The blind and the deaf and the autistic and the truly intellectually disabled. But I'll drop a tear, keep on going. The race is not for the swift, but for the bold.
That's right.
Okay. All right. Well, that was our show today on Vent Radio with Dr. Umar Johnson. What did you think about the show, Doctor?
I enjoyed it.
Did you have fun? Because we believe in letting you have fun.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It was a pleasure to meet you.
It was a pleasure,
and to feel your spirit.
Yes.
It was really a pleasure.
Thank you.
I understand the kind of pressure you're under going in front of them crackers in they courthouses. I've been there, but let me tell you something, brother. They may possibly can take that piece of paper, but they can't take what's in your head. Right. And if they in fact take that paper, you're going to get bigger. That's what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. So you'll be all right, man. It don't matter. One way or the other, you're going to be all right. Because if they take that paper, man, you're going to get larger. So at least you ain't fighting for your life.
That's right.
I fought them for my life.
Mm-hmm.
So walk up in there, man, and do what you got to do. And however it comes out, keep being Umar.
That's right.
Yes.
You got plenty of love here in Detroit.
All around the world. And when you come into the area and you need some help before you get to a venue or whatever, call us, man.
I'm going to do that.
Call us.
I'm going to do that.
Take care of you.
Appreciate it.
And you ain't got to worry about trusting them.
Appreciate that. Yes, sir.
And so, Dr. Umar, can I give you my tagline?
Sure, baby.
They don't like my tagline.
What's that tagline? What's that tagline?
Wait a minute. This ain't in the zone.
It's still my tagline.
Oh, shit.
It's still my tagline. First of all, Dr. Umar, I want to ask that you don't surrender your certificate and your license to them because you earned them. And it means something to somebody who struggled in college or to see another man or see another African American. I was the first one in my family to obtain a degree. So it means something. It means something to see another man, a Black man, that has did their due diligence and sought higher education and is using it to build up the Black kingdom. So I'm asking that you don't surrender, that if they take it, they have to take it by force.
Yes, ma'am.
Because you earned it.
Yes, ma'am.
And you earned it in the right way. You didn't get an honorary degree, you earned it. And so let them take that which they think that they may belong to.
What the hell do that even feel like?
And you see this right here? We just got to answer with one of my fans, which is my wife, that just told Mr. Cooper, why do you think this have to be a fraud? If you didn't have nothing to say, you should have stayed off the air. Thank you, boo-boo. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. See, this is Detroit.
Yes, sir.
We'll let you know.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Umar, how did it feel?
They don't want to let you go.
When you there's so many important things to ask him, though. I mean, and the sister, she just brought up a hell of a point. How many Black men do we have? Forget about the care about us as a people. We ain't even going there. How many Black men do we have that has a degree to do what he does?
Not many.
Not many.
Very few blacks.
And they know that.
Right.
So, let's take his paperwork. Then them black folks really ain't gonna have. No, he's gonna get bigger, white boy. That's what's gonna happen. You may as well leave this man alone and let him do his work. Because if you take the paper, he's going to get larger. More people are going to help him. It's just that simple. I believe
we can
that.
help now because I went on that site and sent an email.
No,
because the pen is mightier than the sword.
Thank you.
And you can talk all you want.
Well, you have to direct me to that
until you
site.
put it down on paper, and for them to see it on paper, they need to see it, like you said.
Yeah.
And so we text and we chat, and I took the time to say, you know what? This is important for me to go on that site and to send an email voicing how I felt. That if you earned it, if you went through the due diligence to obtain your doctorate degree and obtain the certifications, you have people that have killed, you have murderers, you have pedophiles, you have all type of people who have a doctorate degree. And if you're not going to take their degree, then you shouldn't be taking Dr. Umar Johnson's degree.
That's right.
And I'm going to roll up with this one. If a person's got that much energy, that much time to dedicate a page and promote you and try to down you, they doing the work for you, my brother. You see,
Black power.
They doing the work for you.
Black power.
You just might not like the way they said it, but you just putting so much effort to just let the world know you don't like me.
Yeah.
If you want to call to show your support for Dr. Umar, you can contact the PA State Board of Psychology. Attention, Vito J. Don Giovanni. Attention, Vito J. Don Giovanni. Attention, Catherine S.
That's
PhD.
Italian boy,
right? Don.
That's what it says. You can send it to.
He run around with Miss Versace, ain't he?
P.O. Box 2649, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania 17105, or you can call 717-783-7155. That's 717-783-7155.
And when you call that number, you can ask for an email address, because I asked for an email address because I wanted to have it on record that I support Dr. Umar Johnson.
Y'all hear that music? That's letting y'all know we're about to round it up and round it out. Our special guest today was Dr. Umar Johnson. We really appreciate you being in the city of Detroit. We really appreciate you being here on ventradio.net. We hope to see you again anytime you want to come to the house. Just knock on the door. We got you. It's your man, the one and only Mr. Sam 44 Man, Detroit Raw Live. I'll see y'all in 48 hours. We appreciate
what
y'all.
What did he say? I don't know what he said, but I didn't say my tag.
I will see y'all out here. ventradio.net. Y'all have a good New Year's. Happy New Year, everybody.
That was strong.
Let's go.